Same here, Mike, and thank you very much. And hello, everybody. And as Mike said, we'll be very open to taking questions and being very interactive as we go. I apologize for my voice. So, hello, everyone. It happens every day in the workplace. People get stuck thinking inside the box, using the same problem-solving techniques, relying on traditional solutions. How do you make the box bigger? How do you show them there is no box? Would you know where to start? Would you know what to do? My name is Rakesh Shreewastav, and during this presentation today with my colleague Mike Pearsall, we're going to introduce you to a process that will do exactly that. Good morning again, and welcome everyone to Introduction to Value Management, also fostering innovation. During this presentation, we'll share with you what successes we experienced. We'll show you the process, step-by-step process, as part of leadership roles in MTO, Ontario Ministry of Transportation, what challenge we faced, and what valuable lessons we learned as part of our value management delivery in Ontario and Canada. And we'll also bring you some real examples you can use in your day-to-day project management or day-to-day work. And we'll share with you as well, and also focus on how you can apply with your collaborative work in other division you work in. So a little bit introduction about myself, which is the next slide. Over 20 years ago, I started in MTO, and now I work in transit agency, delivering provincial and national projects, role in value management myself, over 18 years, and also serve on the board of directors of Value-Analyse Canada, a national organization, as you know, is promoting value methodology, and my board role in Federal Bridge Corporation as part of appointment by Government of Canada. I always take a pride in Ontario Public Service recognition, part of our role in value management, cost saving, adding value, that led our team collectively recognized by the Amethyst Award. If you see, that's something impressive. Wait till the next slide to learn about Mike.
Thanks, Rakesh. Well, I know I'm Mike Pearsall, for those that don't know me. I'm a professional engineer in Ontario. I've worked for the Ministry of Transportation. I guess what they call a lifer for over 30 years since I was fresh out of university. And I'm also a certified value specialist, which I have been for over 18 years. I've had a role in value management at the Ministry of Transportation for over 25 years since the program was started. As Lucy had mentioned earlier, I'm a past board member and past president of Value-Analyse Canada. I'm currently also the immediate past president of Save International. And yes, Rakesh and myself and a group of us at MTO were recognized in the past with the Amethyst Award. And there's been some other awards I've received from Save International and Value-Analyse Canada. Certainly, those are just for our work in this area. Many people have achieved a lot of things, and we just want to share with everybody our experiences and how enthusiastic we are about this whole process. And with that, I just want to take a pause for a moment to talk to you about the two main organizations that are involved in the value methodology in Canada. First, we've got Save International. This is the premier international society devoted to advancing and promoting the value methodology. And when you see people that are listed as a CVS, a Certified Value Specialist, or they're listed as a VMA, a Value Methodology Associate, these are certifications that come from Save International, and we use those designations in Canada. Now, the other society, of course, which we're partaking right now, is Value-Analyse Canada, the sponsor of this particular event. And Value-Analyse Canada is the nonprofit society that helps Canadians stay competitive by improving value in their projects, processes, and products through the application of the value methodology. And Value-Analyse Canada does promote the methodology within Canada, and we're proud to be members of both societies and representing both of them today. Just giving a bit of a brief history on the value methodology and just a timeline here. I know that Lucy, on the opening day, she went through very nicely an outline of the history of the value methodology within Canada. Now, overall, we can trace the origins of the value methodology back to the 1940s during the Second World War, when Larry Miles developed value engineering at General Electric. Fast forward to the 1950s, when the US Navy starts adopting value engineering. It wasn't until the 1960s, as was mentioned, particularly with the US Army Corps of Engineers, that value engineering spread to various government and industrial bodies through military construction, US manufacturers, Department of Defense, and spread as well through Europe and Asia. I know we were treated a number of years ago at one of the conferences to talking about some of the first articles that were put in the Reader's Digest and had spurred some of this growth in Europe and people to contact Larry Miles in that time. In the 1970s, the methodology spread to Japan, and that's really when the Federal Highway Association, and that's has a lot of impact to MTO eventually, but the Federal Highway Association started using it on a lot of highway projects. In the 1980s, in the US, federal laws start coming in that were mandating the use of the methodology. It wasn't until 1995 that MTO did our first VE study. And then it was early 1997 when we conducted our first Module 1 training in Kingston. I was lucky to be there. I was lucky to be the organizer of that, as well as since it was my hometown at that time, I was able to attend the very first Module 1 training, and I'm proud of that fact. Rakesh. You're on mute, Rakesh. Yeah.
So for leadership in achieving best value for money through a structural approach to innovation, so value management, we're talking about in 2014, over 8 years ago, we're part of the MTO achieving a big milestone of cost savings and avoidance, over $1 billion at that time. That led to national recognition and international news, and also led to Ontario Public Service recognition of Amethyst Award. So next, what is value management? So also known as value analysis, value engineering, this is a facilitated and creative process that generates alternative solutions, involves people from a variety of backgrounds. What it does, it balances both features and cost by defining what value is and a method to improve value itself. This is done in a number of phases. This is not something new. Value management has been around for a very, very long time, since World War II, actually. It was developed to meet a crisis, shortage of war materials. And in 1995, way before our time, MTO was facing a crisis, and we started using value management. Let me share with you what it is not. It is not just a good design. It's not a suggested program. It's not a routine project review. Or more importantly, it's not a cost-cutting, de-scoping exercise. Again, it's a facilitated and creative process that generates alternative solutions and involve people who come together from a variety of backgrounds. And value itself is a personal perspective of your willingness to pay for the performance that can be delivered by a product, service, process, or projects. And what it does, it balances both features and cost by, simply put, achieving more outcome with the same resource or same outcome with the least resource possible.
So let's dive right into a discussion on value. So this is where the audience can't be silent any longer. We're going to get some participation here. This is our first exercise. So I want to ask people, various people, and just feel free to unmute yourself and jump into the conversation here. What is value? So who wants to tell me what they think value is?
Well, in terms of lean, value is defined as something that the customer is ready to pay for.
Excellent answer. Yes, something a customer is willing to pay for. I think that's a very good thing. Any other takes on what value is?
You can write us in the chat as well.
Value is a ratio of function performance to the cost of that performance.
Yep, that's a very tactical answer. Excellent. Thanks, Warren. Any other answers people want to try? I think Amin, do you want to say something?
Yes, good morning. Just I was in the other session. Thank you for the presentation. The value, to my understanding, is the level of the satisfaction based on the time, human resources, whatever that you are, dedicated to one of the anything, activity, some other stuff, It seems the level of the satisfaction bring the value.
Excellent. Thanks, Amin.
No problem.
I think the important thing to keep in mind is that value comes in more than one form. So we've talked a lot about money. We've talked a little bit about time today, and there's, certainly you can value your time. You have a monetary value. There could be some very basic things of valuing freedom, valuing the environment, valuing family. And I really like some of these technical answers where we talk about how it is the ratio between what you're getting and what you're spending for it, or what you're putting out for it. And this is where we talk about this idea of performance over cost, or what you achieve based on the resources that are being used. There's many different forms. So we're just going to try a little exercise here about how people may perceive value. And for this situation, we're going to use a couple of cars. So for this exercise, we've got two different vehicles that I'm sure people may be familiar with. Certainly nothing that's in my garage at home, neither one of them. So, and hopefully nobody takes this personally, depending on what they drive. We have two different cars here. We have on the left, we have a smart car. So these are the very small cars, they're various forms. I think these are a few years old, the ones in the picture here, but the idea of this basic car that usually only sits one or two people, some of them sit a bit more. And compared to that is this Subaru Impreza, which is, a performance sort of model here. What do these two cars say about their owners' values? We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So think about these two cars. I don't know if anybody in the audience owns one of these two vehicles. I mean, we picked up vehicles that are a few years old, so we hopefully weren't poking at somebody's personal one they just bought in the garage. But what do you think they say about the owner's values? First, about the smart car. What do we think that it says about the owner's values and what they value?
Being practical.
Practical, yes. I think that's a good one for the smart. Practical.
Short commutes as well.
Shorter commutes, yeah. There may be a commuter vehicle, short commute. What else about the smart car? What value might we think the owner values with that?
Maybe environment friendly.
Environmental, yes. I think that's one that comes to mind for me. They're environmentally conscious. They want to be friendly to the environment.
Low cost.
And low cost, yes. I think they're relatively low cost. Yes.
Could be related to space. If they don't have.
Yeah, they're small. They might have a lot of place to park it at home. They may not have a lot of place to park it at work or where they're commuting to. They may want something that fits in that space. Excellent. Okay, now if we switch over to this Subaru Impreza WRX, what do we think off the bat that says about the owner's values?
The level of the luxury, for example, for this car.
They may want some comfort, some luxury. Yes, excellent.
Yes.
Flashy.
Flashy, definitely. I think yes. This may be. Hey, look at this. Look at my wheels. Look at my rims. I want to look flashy out there. Yes, there's an aesthetic appeal. This says start your engine. What does that tell you?
Well, I drive a Mazda, and I know Mazda's advertisement is at vroom vroom. So
yes,
Subaru has the same thing. Let's go, let's get up and go. Hey, I'm letting the customer know that if you drive this car, you can get wherever you're going in 0 to 60 or whatever, you know.
Yeah, there's a performance, there's a speed, there's a I want to get there fast value to this, to looking at a car like that. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about each of these cars, and then we'll see if that changes anything. So if I look at the, you know, the smart car, and this is for their 4.4 black edition, right? It's got a 3-cylinder, you know, gasoline or petrol engine in it with a whopping 75 horsepower, which is quite a bit for the size of that 1.1 liter 3-cylinder engine. Manual transmission in the one that we looked at, right? It's got a McPherson strut front axle with anti-roll bar, a wishbone suspension. I mean, it's actually fairly good when you look at it from a mechanical. Myself, I'm a car person. I look at the mechanical aspect. It's actually fairly well set up considering the size of the car. The braking system, it's got electronic stability. It's got anti-lock brakes, disc brakes on all corners. So certainly it'll stop well. From a safety perspective, this is one we didn't really talk about earlier. I know some people sometimes are concerned about that, but it's got a safety shell construction. The surround lights, it's got crash elements at both the front and rear of the car. The steering column collapses, you know, safety, which is not something you'd see in a 50s or 60s car. It has sensors. It has full-size airbags all around driver, passenger, front. Plus, it has an anti-theft alarm system built into it. Now, from a functional electrical equipment, it has electric power steering and, you know, a mobilizer for security and a 12-volt onboard socket you can get to plug in your phones. So that's what you could get in the smart car from, you know, these are about 10 years ago. This is the specifications at that time. Now I'm going to flip over to the Subaru Impreza at that same time. So this one, it's got the typical Subaru flat 4 turbocharged engine in it, which has got 150 cubic inch or 1.5 liters, I guess, roughly, I should say. You know, so 150 cubic inch and said, yeah, and 2.4, roughly 2.4 liter engine. So 1.1 that we saw over in the smart car, this is more than double the size of the engine in the smart car. It's turbocharged this time. So instead of the 75 horsepower, it's now got 300 horsepower and quite a bit of torque. It's got 300 foot-pounds or 407 newton meters of torque in it. The brakes are anti-lock braking system all around with vented discs, so it's got disc brakes as well. In keeping with the Subaru, it's got all-wheel drive. And, you know, its acceleration is 0 to 60 in less than 5 seconds with a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour, which is, you know, fairly impressive for this car. And yet it does have fuel economy of 18 or 24, or roughly about 10.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, thinking of those two specifications, does that change your thoughts on the owner's values on either one of those cars, or does it verify it?
I would say it probably verifies it, but I would also say don't judge a book by its cover, because I was surprised to see the list of the safety factors related to the first car.
Exactly. I was as well. Thanks, Leah.
Unsaid on both of them are the passenger cargo capacity, significantly higher on the Subaru.
Yes, it is, Warren. Yep. And so when we sort of look at how we thought the values came together, right? You know, we talked about things of the smart car. We had the environmental concerns. You know, tight with money may not be. I mean, it's certainly, I think we were looking economical, right? You know, this is what we sort of thought about. That both cars are fairly trendy at the time. I did think that the Subaru maybe enjoyed driving it more, but I found myself that I was surprised that, you know, I saw more safety features in the smart car than I expected, and I didn't really think a lot about, you know, the size of it. And I agree, Warren, that you're right. There's quite a bit more room in the Subaru than there is in the smart car, and that may change your ability like that, and know how it's being used or what you may use if you look at that. So that's just an idea. We just want to talk about how values can change and how our perception of value, you know, can come from different things. And I think that's really important when we get into creativity in a value analysis type workshop, because we have to have a diverse team that has to look at this value from many different perspectives and bring their own values to the table. Because if they don't do that, you're not going to get into unlock the true creativity and innovation out of the workshop setting. Let's look at some value situations, Rakesh.
So as we told you in our previous slides, it is about performance and it's about the cost. So how we measure that? You learn now about the values, what value is being created. So value itself, if you look at the performance, what performance I can get, what we can achieve the same function or more function with the same cost. So excellent value would be if I get more performance or more function with the same cost or less cost. So look at that one. So less cost. That's a good. Performance is increased, cost are reduced. If you look at the next one, value situation, good value also can be, performance can be the same, but with the less cost. Still you're getting the same performance without compromising the function. In the infrastructure world where Mike and I come from, we say how we can keep the same benefit, same outcome without compromising the benefit, without compromising the outcome, where we can look at alternative solutions, where we look at the generating alternative solutions that cost us lower or the resource may be less. If you look at the next performance perspective, good potential value, cost is increased as well the performance. So performance is increased, cost increase, still good potential value because performance may be higher than cost. If you look at the other side of the things, maybe not so much. How many projects we look at the infrastructure project and other projects, schools, hospital, number of infrastructure projects and other non-infrastructure projects. You look at sometimes we get less because of cost is balloon, overrun, or a schedule is delayed, and the performance goes down because of the function we get less. And the cost perspective also uncertain value. So the cost is less because we just started to de-scoping something. So we made it less because of not because of alternative solutions, but we looked at just cutting something. So this becomes uncertain value. If you look at the next perspective, cost goes up. As we talked about, cost overrun, it remains, and we keep adding cost to the project or the programs or the initiatives we're in, but the same performance. That becomes a poor value because performance didn't increase, cost did. So it becomes poor value. Now look at a complete loss of value, which is the kind of worst case scenario. Cost is higher, it's costing us more money, more expensive, more cost overrun. That leads to other claims or other uncertainty in the process. But performance is also down. Performance is not even the same. So that's a complete loss of value, poor value. And that happens in real life. So let me share with you where Mike and I come from, value management MTO, which is real data and fact. As we said, we're going to share with you some of the real data and the facts. So the lots of MTO projects were focused on reducing cost, again, based on what you saw value, reducing cost without compromising the performance, without compromising the functions. So we were able to do that. And we also measure some of the return of investment of costing value management exercise based on the resource and time and energy and cost we put together. It outlasts over 100 to 1 sometimes based on the size and the complexity of the project. But more importantly, what we also look at from the value management perspective, which is much beyond than dollar and cents, we look at the innovation, how we're fostering innovation. We're looking at the customer's needs. Sometimes our customers, sometimes our partners, they have different interests and they do not align. So what value management does and has done in the past, it's looked at things from the customer perspective and looking at that competing interest and also engaging employees, engaging stakeholders. Let me share with you one of the graphic, one of the data and the fact we're tracking since the inception of the program. If you see And the snapshot is taken right in the middle of the program. Within about 25 years, cost saving and avoidance. This graphic shows the number of study and the cost avoidance, which is a $1.4 billion. And now it's close to 2023, forward 9 years, it's close to $2 billion. So that speaks volume itself, the number of study completed in the different stages of the design, planning, preliminary design, detailed design, and the value it shows based on how much cost was avoided and saved. But let me share with you what this graphic does not show. This graphic doesn't show lots of other things, which is beyond dollar and cents we touched on a little bit. It doesn't show about other added value we talk about, added value related to schedule, constructabilities, risk reduction, and more importantly, engaging our stakeholder, our partners, and overall fostering innovation.
Thank you, Rakesh. And I think the thing I want to point out here is that, even though we're representing the Ministry of Transportation Ontario, people automatically think about highways and bridges like that. This is not just about highways. We've applied this to many different things throughout the Ministry of Transportation. We've applied it to buildings. We've applied it to transit. It's been applied to water and wastewater projects, and it's been applied to environmental mitigation. There's a couple of pictures here. We use this to redesign the looks of how our snow removal equipment would be. We've used this to redesign, stations and truck inspection facilities and, tourist buildings, all kinds of things that we've used this, that are physical things that are not just highways that we've used it for within the Ministry of Transportation. On top of that, it's not just about capital projects. We've used this for organizational change and how to do business processes. We've looked at reorganizations of our own facilities, reorganizations of our offices. We've looked at, how we deploy our fleet. We've looked at resource benefit sharing with Indigenous groups. We've used this in operations and maintenance. We looked at our road condition reporting system. So if you're familiar with our 511 information system, we helped design the new version of that using the value methodology. There's many different I&IT projects we looked at. I said, besides just like websites, we've looked at our traffic volume information system. We've looked at our geographic information system. We've looked at location referencing. There's been all kinds of different IT projects. This actually, I find that the methodology, one thing that people don't think about too much is the methodology works really well with scoping out an IT project. I found that within our organization, especially if you use something like the functional performance specification, you can use this methodology to come up with some functions you need to achieve. And the IT people can take that and they say, okay, now I fully understand what the functions you want to achieve, and I'll go away and program this, or I'll go away and customize this software to meet your needs. We've used it quite a bit. When I look at things like risk, risk is another thing that's really important. We've been embracing looking at risk and risk management a lot more in the Ministry of Transportation lately. And we like to combine cost risk studies using the methodology and risk. And that's sort of an advanced technique we're not really talking about today, but it is something we use on this, not just capital projects. And we do have a policy within MTO for the size of projects that have to be used like that, and, some of these very large things. And, I think there's Rakesh might want to share a story about sort of risk and some VE being applied to the Windsor-Essex Parkway project.
So thank you, Mike. Yeah, in Windsor-Essex Parkway is also known as Wright Hargray Parkway. It's one of the most expensive roadway built in Canadian history. It's a 9-kilometer, 9.5, or $1.8 billion if you cross between Ontario and Michigan. One of the busiest border crossing in the world, in fact, in North America, based on the amount of good goes for the manufacturer. And our task from the Ontario Ministry of Transportation was how we can build a road, but also look at from the cost perspective, but also the risk factor perspective. So what it did, we combined our value management study, what we had, but also looking from the risk perspective, how we can look at some of the risks we're facing from the cost perspective, but also from the other risk from the project. And we were able to apply successfully and integrate that value management to use that methodology structure approach for the risk mitigation measures we had. So that was very successful.
And in addition to sort of our own policies, I mean, there are other policies in the United States. The U.S. Executive Office has OMB Circular 131, which mandates the use of the methodology on large projects that receive federal funding. If you go to the UK, they have their Management of Value, which is the MOV program, and the UK Cabinet Office mandates, that the use of this within, their efficiency and reform group and how things are done in some of their projects. And it's very interesting to see the policies throughout the world and how it's used throughout the world. Now that we sort of whet your interest, I guess, in the methodology, for those of you that are new to the methodology, we're going to take some time now. We're going to go through exactly what the value management workshop is and how the methodology works, and explain it in a little bit more detail so that people feel comfortable with this, because this is supposed to be, once again, an introduction to using the methodology and getting innovation as a result. So let's talk about the value management workshop. So it is a workshop. This is a process, this is a structured process, as Rakesh said. And the key to this structured process is that it's facilitated process. And by using this facilitated process, you're going to generate, alternative solutions to your problems, and you're going to maximize your value. Now, by true definition of the value management workshop, according to SAVE International, which is our sort of regulatory body, there are sort of 8 parts or phases to the value management workshop. Now, on either end, there's what we call the pre-workshop and the post-workshop, and you will have seen those mentioned during a couple of the presentations earlier in this week. And then sandwiched in between the pre-workshop and the post-workshop, are 6 phases that are really the meat of the workshop. And we're going to just go through each of these phases, tell you what they're about, but we're going to stop on a couple of them, particularly function analysis and creative phase, because those are very key to what we're talking about today, and go more into depth of how they work, because they are really what sets the methodology apart from all other methodologies. So starting with the information phase. So right after we leave the pre-workshop, getting everything set up, we start the information phase. And this is the first sort of formal part of a workshop, whether the workshop is virtual or in person. This is where everything really starts, is at the information phase. This is where we want to review the project information. What is it that we know about what we're studying? Am I studying a highway? Am I studying a building? Am I studying an IT program? What do I know? What information do I have available? What can we share with the team? We want to discuss the project. What is it? What does it need to do? Why are we here? What are the problems? What is maybe some budget constraints? This is where we're going to ask a lot of questions. And I find one of the earlier sessions, was very good in the conference this week about questions that you need to ask. I love when Chaim was going through these questions you need to ask right off the start. And each of those 9 questions has sort of 10 sub-questions. And I was racing through my mind saying, yes, this is where you ask a lot of questions. Why are we doing this? Why is it a problem? What do I need to achieve? What are the parameters? And it's important here to clearly define the project objectives. Exactly what is it? What do we need to do? And are there any key constraints? Is there a stakeholder we're dealing with? Is there a public thing? Is there a major budget? Is this project running over funding? Maybe, I know this, we talked about the city of Halifax earlier, and I know when they came to me with their very first project, and they said, we've got a problem and we'd like to think about using the value methodology. And I said, well, exactly tell me the problem. And they explained to me that they had an interchange that was running over budget. And I said, great, well, tell me a little bit more about your budget and about the interchange. And they said, well, we've got this sort of $50 million budget, and we've been designing this interchange, and looking at things now, it's not going to fit within that $50 million range. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about your interchange. They told me, and I said, well, I can see a problem right away. I said, you've got a $60 or $65 million interchange, and you've only got a $50 million budget. So yeah, you definitely do have a problem. There's a constraint there. If money is a true constraint, then you need to look at how you can reduce the money you're spending on that project to get better value. At the same aspect, they had a number of physical constraints in the ground. There was a lot of grade restraints. There was a lot of other things with different users and land. There's a lot of constraints, and that goes with any project, whether it's a horizontal infrastructure, vertical infrastructure, whether you're looking at a business. We looked at some business processes, and I know in the government where I work, one of the key constraints often in an office is the number of bodies that you're allowed to have in the office, or what we often refer to as the FTEs, or the full-time equivalencies. And a group in your office may say, I've only got 14 FTEs. How am I going to achieve all the things my office needs to achieve with only 14 positions? And this is where business change comes in to say, okay, how can I change the business? How can I look at what do we really need to deliver here? So this is where these constraints are. This is where you clearly define the objectives, what you want to do and what you have to do and what you've got to work with. Moving to the next phase, this is the function analysis phase. And we're going to spend some time on this one because this is really the key aspect of value management. This is where we answer the question, what must it do? And that's very key. Once again, whether you're dealing with a product, process, project, whatever it is, what must it do? This is a key thing to ask, and this is really what sets the value methodology apart from all other methodologies, is this concept of function analysis. Now, to better look at function analysis, we really look at essentially some verb-noun pairs. And this is where we look at the functions after we determine them through these verb-noun pairs, and then we talk about how they relate to each other. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. This is key because it allows a better exploration of the alternatives. This is where you can get into the innovation. We're going to get into the creativity. But if you set your function analysis correctly with this, what is a function I need to achieve? How must I do this? What are other functions that occur where they may be some unwanted functions, things that you do want or don't want? This is the key to the methodology. So to explain this, we're going to look at one of my favorite simple examples first. And that is a pencil. I've got here in my hand, I've got a common pencil. And I apologize, the background's gone fuzzy here, but I mean, with this, when I rebooted, but they have common pencil. Here's our common pencil. So can somebody tell me in a simple verb noun definition, what the function of a pencil is? What do people think the function of a pencil is?
Make mark.
Make marks. Yes, excellent. Leah, very good answer. All right. Are there any other functions people think about when they talk about a pencil to that? I'm glad I've got a star in the audience here. Leah's got a
the mark.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, remove a mark like that, right? And so that's good. Excellent. Thank you. So when I think about a pencil, and often if I get people who are inexperienced, they'll often say something like write, and I'll say, well, okay, go ahead, pencil, write. And, well, that's an activity, right? The pencil can't really perform the activity. Humans perform the activity. But the basic function is to make a mark, or what SAVE says in their official sort of definition is to mark a surface. That's the basic definition. If this pencil can't mark a surface, this pencil is of no use to anybody. And we've all had pencils that had that problem. But that's the basic thing, is mark that surface or make a mark. That's the basic function of a pencil. And that's what it's there for. We're going to come back to the pencil in a minute. But I want to just practice with a couple other things that you may see commonly in my world. So what about a public meeting? What would people see as the function of a public meeting?
Listen to the people.
Okay, listen to the people. Now, how can we say that? Can we try that in shorten it a bit? So, okay. So it's a good start. Listen to people. What's
so just maybe hear the comments, hear the objection.
Yeah, hear comments. Okay, that's good. That's a bit. So we're sort of into an activity a bit, but once again, this is great. That's a good start. And this is where we start working on this.
Receive input.
Receive input. Very good, Warren. Right, this is good. So this is building off each other. So I
Share
hear sort of
ideas.
listen, hear, receive. Sorry, what was that one?
Share ideas.
Hear ideas, yes.
Share.
Oh, share ideas. Yes, share ideas. Excellent. You know, and I think it depends sometimes on the function of whether you are, you know, a government agency, whether you're a consultant, whether like that. So I think combining all those answers, I sort of see it as like seek input. That's why I may have a public meeting. That may be a basic function of a public meeting.
Did you
What
do
about something?
convey information?
Convey information. Yes, maybe you're just actually conveying information. You're actually giving information back to the public, right? There's a number of different ways you can look at the functions you're achieving with that public meeting. Now, if we go to something that very common people should be familiar with, what about a set of traffic signals? What's the basic function of a set of traffic signals?
Direct flow, direct traffic flow, or direct flow?
Oh, direct flow. Okay. Once again, so once again, I find off we start with activities because really that's a directing flow. That's what it's doing. But how else could they do that? How else could we say that?
Control movements.
Control movement. Excellent. Yes, I like that. Control movement. Any other things we think about for traffic signals? In terms of verb and a noun.
It's also relaying information or
Yes, relay information, right? What about a drill bit? So think about a common drill bit. You know, you got your drill, you're drilling into something. What would be a function of a drill bit? Anything about a common drill bit? What's its function?
I want to say generate hole, but that's not what, those aren't the verbs and nouns I want to use, but it's something like that.
No, a generate hole. I mean, that's a good example. Yeah, it could be to generate a hole or to make a hole in something, to remove material, right? There's a lot of things that a drill bit, that's what its basic function is. So, I mean, these are ones that I think some excellent answers come to. I wish I sort of was able to whiteboard this live like that. So I have to go with sort of some stuff that we'd come up with ourselves. So we sort of saw that a public meeting was like a seek input. Traffic is control traffic. I actually like Warren's control movement. And I think that's, so you see how we play with some of those words there. The drill bit, make a hole, make an opening, remove material. And I think the important thing to say here is there's not really a wrong answer. There may be, for some of these common things, there may be some official answers that different organizations have. But when you're looking at an actual project or product or business process that you're doing as part of the methodology, the important thing is that everybody in the group agrees to those functions, how you're going to phrase those functions. This is just a tool to get the whole team talking on common grounds so that they can then look at innovation, but it has to be abstracted enough that you don't focus yourself on only one solution. You have to have a bunch of different solutions. And that's why if we sort of get it too much towards an activity, we're pointing too much towards a certain solution. Whereas if we keep it broader, then we have other solutions that could come up. We're going to talk about that during the creativity phase. But I want to talk a little bit more about function analysis. So we talked about this sort of single function, this basic function that everything has. So if I go back to our pencil, we said that basic function was to mark a surface. However, we see that the pencil itself has a lot of other things to it, because really only that sort of graphite or lead at the end of the pencil is the stuff that's going to mark the surface. So there are obviously some secondary functions that come with that pencil. Pencil is a fairly simple thing. It's, we get some more complex, there's more functions, but there are other functions. And I heard earlier, I think Samuel said that one of the other secondary functions was to remove marks. Are there other functions that you can think of that are secondary functions that go with that pencil? And I'm just going to go through different parts of the pencils here. So if I look at the eraser, what would the function of the eraser be?
remove mark.
Remove marks. Excellent, right? If I look at this little metal band, the furl or whatever they call it, like that, the band that's here on the end of the pencil, what would be the function of that band?
It's to protect the eraser, but that's not, I don't want to say eraser.
Yeah. Does it protect it, or does it sort of connect it or secure it?
Is it
Secure-
secure or connect? Your connect.
Yeah, I think it's really connect. I mean, you know, connect or secure, right?
Yeah.
What about the actual sort of wooden barrel of the pencil? What's sort of the function of the wooden barrel of the pencil?
Protect graphite.
Yes, yeah. It's there to really protect or support that. If you didn't have that, that graphite's very breakable, and it would. If you've ever tried to write with just a straight piece of graphite, you'll understand it's very hard because it breaks, it's brittle. So that wood is there to support that and protect it. What about the wood on the outside? That means the paint on the outside of the wood. What function might it have?
Visual aesthetic. So
Yeah, it could be aesthetic, improve appearance. It could be a protection coating so that you know that the wood doesn't corrode or doesn't rub away in your hand like that. If I hold up this other pencil I've got here, and I apologize, the screen me, but it's this has advertising on it. This is from the egg farmers of Ontario. It advertises you should eat eggs. So maybe there's a marketing function. So just with a simple pencil, you see that there are a lot of different things that it can have when you look at the concept of functions in something as simple as a pencil. But by looking at those functions, it opens you up to innovation and creativity. Now, if I look at something a little bit more complex, and one of my favorite examples again, and that would be a mousetrap. So I've got here this is a common mousetrap. Of course, when I go for these productions, I love to have my rat trap, which is a little bit bigger like that, okay? Much more visually pleasing to look at in these situations. What would be the function, the primary function of a mousetrap like this wooden mousetrap that's in front of you, or the rat trap that I held up, either one of them? What would be the primary function of something like this? Why would you have this? Sorry?
Capture mice.
Capture mice, okay. So capture mice, that's a good one, yes.
Attract mouse. Attract mouse.
Well, that's a thing that certainly if you've got this, you've got mice, you got a problem with the mice, right? And so you might really, when I think of it, I think really the basic thing is to eliminate mice. If I got this around, I want to get rid of something. I don't want them as pets. You accidentally hit your finger on this, which I've done many times during presentations, it hurts. Certainly that's something I want to eliminate mice. And I want to talk some more about this and all the functions that go into this, because we talked about attracting the mouse. I heard that from Amin. There's a lot of things, like look how strong this comes back like that. So we're restraining some force and we're releasing some force and torque like that that's going to make this function. And we are securing all these parts to a board. There are functions that are within that. And so how do we deal with all these functions? It's simple when you got like a pencil, maybe you can just list those. But when you're dealing with many functions, you need to try to put those and orient them towards each other. And for that, we use our FAST diagram. And this is a key part as well. I find that every study I do, I have a FAST diagram, and I can't do a study without a FAST diagram. Some people claim that they can, but the methodology to me is really key to have this, even though that it did come along, I guess, about 20 to 25 years after the methodology started. And this was invented by our late friend, Charles, by the way. There's a couple of pictures of Charlie himself. One, he's posing for a picture for me in front of his first finished FAST diagram, which was of a light bulb. And the one to the right is a picture of Charlie actually at one of our past conferences while he was still around with us, actually doing a FAST diagram himself. And it's a method of organizing the relationship between the functions. And what's key here is that we ask how and why about functions. How is this related to another function? Why is it related? How do you do this? Why do you do this? The whole key is to foster an understanding of the product, process, whatever we're looking at, and ultimately invite some creativity as a result of seeing how these functions interrelate and seeing what is the primary functions, what are secondary functions, what are needed functions, what are unnecessary functions, how do they relate to each other? So in a basic form, this is what a FAST diagram is like. You're basically saying, in one direction, you read the diagram as how, in the other direction, you read the diagram as why. And there's also a when function up and down, and there's all the time function. It can get quite complex, but in the very basic format, how do I do this function? Why do I do this function? And they'll relate. So if I go back now to our favorite little mousetrap here, okay? And we've agreed already that our basic function is to eliminate mice. But how do I eliminate the mice? How does that happen? When I think about this wooden mousetrap, you know, these ones I got here, when I think about this, how do I eliminate mice using that?
You wanted to attract mice, you know, to come to the trap.
Yes, okay, so attract a mouse. So how do I eliminate mice? I attract mice. Okay, well, I think attract probably goes over closer to the far right of the diagram. So definitely we agree on the far right, we're gonna have something to attract the mouse. And at the far left, we're gonna have something to eliminate the mouse. In between, how do I do that? Remember this, I talked about how I get my finger cut in here. Okay. What is this doing to eliminate the mouse?
Hit them.
It hits them, yes. It delivers an impact.
Yes.
All right. There's an impact that's being delivered. And how do I deliver that? How do I deliver that impact? You know, if I think about physics now.
Convert energy, convert from a spring, you know.
Yes, yes. I'm delivering that because I'm going to transfer some force from this bar to this piece of wood to deliver the impact. And that transfer energy is, you know, I've got to store some energy in these springs that are in the middle. I've got to release some energy out of that when I'm transferring impact. And I've got to ultimately trigger, you know, we talked about, you know, track the mouse. They're going to hold some bait over here, and that's going to make this trigger. And by holding that bait, it triggers the main trigger and releases this large spring and all that energy, and whap, your mouse is done, right? So just going, you know, ahead here. This is what, you know, a fast diagram for a mousetrap might look like. So I want to eliminate mice, you know, or kill the mouse in this case, but really, you know, I like eliminate better than kill. It sounds a little bit better, right? You know, how do I do that? I'm going to deliver impact. How do I deliver impact? I transfer force. How do I transfer force? Well, I transfer force by releasing energy. You know, and you know, how do I release the energy? I'm you know, receiving some force. I'm holding a bait, and you know, how do I hold that bait? Well, I supply the bait, and you know, and you say, okay, why am I doing this? All right, so I'm tracking that mouse and getting them over there. I'm retaining some energy. I'm storing energy. How do I retain energy? I store it. How do I store the energy? I apply the force for a human hand is going to come in. The human hand is going to move it over the first time and apply that energy and store that into that spring. So these you know, this starts to get a little bit more complex with a mousetrap. Now you can imagine when we start looking at highway projects and buildings and business organizations, these can grow to fill the wall in the room in the workshop. But don't be afraid of that. I know in the parallel training session right now in the other breakout room, Steve is teaching a course about, you know, fast diagrams and technical fast and customer fast diagrams versus function trees, which are all just different ways to look at this. These may seem a little bit scary when you haven't done one before, but as a practitioner, once you're using the methodologies, it becomes very easy to do. And I think the most important thing I want to tell you about this when I talk about fast diagrams and functions is, once again, I say, there's no real wrong answer. There may be people who say, oh, well, this is what the book says here. And I go back to, you know, Charles By the Way. And I had the great fortune to meet the man a number of times and sit with him, have some great discussions. And, you know, one of the questions I asked him one time, when one of the first times we got to sit alone on a couch, you know, one evening at a conference talking, and we talked for hours. And I said, you know, I'm really curious. And he said, you know, about a few things. He said, well, I'm a nice man. He said, well, what would you like to ask me? And I said, how many fast diagrams have you finished in your life and done? And he sat there quietly for a few minutes, and he looked at me and he said, 1. I'm like, 1? Like, that's not the answer I expected. And he said, I finished that diagram for the light bulb because I wanted to put it in the textbook. And he says, I don't consider I've ever finished another fast diagram. He says, because you take it to the point where the team is on a common understanding and the team agrees with the functions they need to achieve and what's important in the project. He says, and then After that, he says, you just make it look pretty for the report, but he says, never really finished. He says, there's no right or wrong answer. He says, I could have different teams put together a fast diagram and they're going to look slightly different each time. And that's the truth, because the function of this, the function of the fast diagram, is to get the team to have a common understanding of what they're studying. And then based on that common understanding, we can then take those functions and we can put them through the process of the rest of the methodology to get creativity and innovation. And we're going to talk about that after the break. Right now, I've been told that we have to have a 5-minute break. So we're just going to give people a 5-minute bio break. And we're going to come back after that, talking about the creative phase.
Okay, so we hope everyone is back. So welcome back. And again, we'll continue our spirit of engaging you and making more interactive. So you heard from Mike about how information is so important for any value management project and a study and the process we do. And the function is a core part of it, how it can bring together. And now let's talk about the creative phase. Let me ask you 3 questions. And you can answer by responding directly in chat, or you can keep it yourself. So basic questions. How many people here, 12, 13 of us, you consider yourself creative? Anyone who feels that you're creative?
I know you said to put it in the chat, but it's a little long. I just wanted to say that I would like to say I'm creative, but it's hard because we get stuck working in the confines of a box, kind of, whether it's the regulatory offices or your managers or whoever's putting the restraints on. So
that's very well said. So you feel creative, but sometimes constrained around you. Anyone feels that you are consider yourself creative? It could be yes and no. Let me ask you a second question. How many people here believe that creativity just happens and it comes upon you without thinking about that? I put in the chat. So how many people believe that creativity just happens and it comes upon you without thinking about that? Maybe no one, maybe few of you, but it happens. Third question. How many people believe that there are only certain people who can be creative? And that's not part of everyone. I felt that way. And I'm sure some of you feel that way too. And reality in the fact is many people don't consider themselves as creative. But we all can be. And there are many myths about creativity, and the questions posed are all myths. And this creative phase of value management is all about generating ideas, generating alternative solutions. So what does that mean? Everyone has a capacity to be creative and to generate ideas that may improve a product, can be a service, or more importantly, solve a problem. And what it does, the importance of value management in the creative phase is making it more fun. And it can be a most fun because everyone come together from different backgrounds, regardless of their hierarchy, the professional designation, where division they work on, and bring different perspective to generate alternative solutions. And that's the creative phase all about. To feel you that you are creative, because you all come from different background, you bring those ideas, and that makes you creative. So look at the next slide, where we look at some of the ideas. Just simple things. you learn some of the functions. But how can you store information? Just simple thing. Where do you store information? Any ideas? Yeah, I saw in the chat, everybody is creative. Exactly. We can store, some people store in the paper. Some people store information still in the filing cabinet. Some people store information in the flash drive. Any other idea you can think of? Some people read information in the news. Number of way to store information. What it tells you, we're keeping the function of storing information, but we're looking at different perspective right there. We're generating alternative solutions. We're not judging anything. We're looking at the alternative solution. What alternative solution can be to do the same thing? If you go to the next one, look at some of the roadblocks. What happens to the creativity? And some of our colleagues mentioned today. Sometimes you go from value management perspective to generate solutions, and sometimes in real life, people feel that there's no time. We have to. This project is so high priority. The project is the schedule is so tight, and you hear all the time, there's no time to do this. Let's move on. Sometimes it's too expensive. It's costing us money. Why are we going to change anything if it's working fine? Maybe we should do next time, maybe next month, next year. It's not possible. How are we going to get there? And our senior management would not agree. I know our colleagues from, I want to recognize my colleagues from Treasury Board Secretariat and Cabinet Office are here to join, and Lean Office. Some of the things you can take away, what we feel, we face in our day-to-day life, in our the work we do. So it's very relevant. And sometimes we say, oh, we already consider that part of the early phase. So these are the things people think about before generating alternative solution, and that becomes a roadblock itself. So from looking at the next perspective, what is the key for the creativity? How we can do that? So we associate some of the ideas that can be similar. You know, the engineering perspective or the environmental perspective or the economic perspective, there's a different professionals come from different background, different division, they work together and they bring all ideas together. So some can be similar, some can be not the same, and that's fine because creative phase is about generating alternative solutions. So how we do this? We do this in the workshop environment in the Rio, where we also talk about the employee engagement come in, a stakeholder engagement come in. How nice it is. We do it together. It's not in isolation. How many times we make decisions in isolation? And what it does, it brings people together. I was in other day in one of the workshops where the partners from different agencies, and they work together. And what we do, sometimes we take our hats off, the hierarchy of who we are, and we try to get into the alternative solutions. I would turn on those creativity. How we say that? Everybody can be creative, and that's what it is. We do not hold back our idea because of somebody going to judge that, or somebody going to laugh at it, or someone going to say, oh, it's not impossible. No, this is about all creating ideas, and we're not jumping to the solution. And we can change and modify and expand on the previous idea what we had, and that's all done in the creative phase with those creative techniques. And creative techniques can be also, you discuss openly, because you're not again there to be judged, because we want the free fall of all idea, and it can be spontaneously. Sometimes idea comes just because some people are already there, and some people done it for 5 years, same thing, and it doesn't work, and it comes there in the spontaneously. Oh, why we didn't think about that? So these are the discussion happens part of the creative technique as well. So why it's successful? But what happens during the creative phase, number one, is open discussion. And it's not a one person's point of view or the direction. It's an open discussion and a diverse point of view. And what it does, pulls you away from the expected solutions. It encourages ideas, as many as possible, because at this point, we're not judging any idea at this point. And it's done with active engagement and facilitation. So now we're moving to the evaluation phase, which is the next phase after we created as many ideas as possible. We went through all the fun. We were creative so much. So when in the creative phase, participants generated all kind of ideas. And now let's get to evaluation, because it was not judged. It was not evaluated in any way. And what evaluation first does, it involves evaluating the ideas from the creative phase, look at the potential. And their potential can be two things. It can save cost and add value, or it can be do both. It can save cost or add value. And add value, we talked about that related to improvement to schedule. It could be risk, constructivity, stakeholder alignment. And these are the things happen during the discussion in the evaluation phase. And what happens in the next phase, you look at the reducing the number of the solutions. We look at some of the questions we ask. Is it reliable? Is it to satisfy the same function? We do that with the comparison, idea comparison. We do sometimes the voting with discussion. We do the weighted matrix idea comparison. And we ask those questions. These are some of the questions on the screen. More importantly, will this save cost, or will this add value without compromising the function? So the next phase after the evaluation is the development phase, where we explore all ideas, shortlisted idea now, because now we evaluate it. And we're going to explore that in the detail, that each idea selected from the evaluation phase that were considered as a worthwhile pursuing. Some maybe not, some it is, some are. And this may include creating a sketch or the details. And that happens during the workshop as well. Determining cost. Maybe we need to drill down some of the cost. Is it costing more? Is it costing the same? What is the impact? And identifying advantage and disadvantage from the customer perspective. What else details we can include during that phase? Is it alternative better than the proposed solutions? What we have as a base case? Does the schedule allow for the proposed alternative to be implemented? And does it achieve the necessary function? Remember, we want that basic function to be achieved. So these are the things happen where we develop all ideas into written recommendation. And now it go to the presentation. So presentation is the last phase during the workshop happens. So we inform ourselves, we got the function, basic function determined. We created the ideas, evaluated them. Now we also develop them in the details. And now with the presentation of the recommendation is made to owners, stakeholders, decision makers. It can be based on the size and the complexity of the project, those can be different. But end of the day, that demonstrate a depth of the analysis that inspires confidence in the work what we have done. And this is also opportunity to present a result of the study what we have done. And more importantly, what credibility of the ideas comes from how well team presents the alternative solutions and respond to questions. Because there will be challenge question, need for clarification, which is good. And that happens during the presentation.
So the question comes really is, why should you implement the value methodology? And how does this relate? And why do you need this creativity? Why do you need this innovation that comes out of it? And the important point that I want to make here is that all projects, products, and processes have unnecessary costs. I have done the methodology on many well-engineered products, well-engineered processes, well-engineered projects. So it's not that there was anything done wrong by the initial team, especially when it comes to the theme of this conference is getting big things done, especially when it comes to big projects, big items, mega projects, or things that are repeated many times. Every project, every product, every process tends to pick up what I'll call baggage along the way. It picks up extra things that it doesn't need. It picks up things that are affecting the value, decisions that were made over time, things that overlap on each other. Maybe one decision was a really good decision and you made a second really good decision, but you didn't reassess the first decision. You need to have this look back at things, say, what do I really want to achieve? What exactly do I need to do here? What is the function? How else can I do this function? Is there a more innovative way of doing this function? The reality is you have to do that, and that especially applies to very big projects and very mega projects. The benefit of the value methodology is what we've said before about this cost-effective, time-bound, defined process that has a proven track record of success. We have shown you, in the first half of our MTO program about how we served we had deferred over $1.4 billion from the projects that we put through the methodology, and we're now in that $2 billion range with our program. It's been proven from what we've seen to reduce capital costs. I've reduced capital costs on many different highway projects. It's reduced life cycle cost. We can definitely, sometimes maybe we save a similar capital cost, but we're reducing the life cycle cost. What's going to take to operate and maintain over time? A lot of times I hear people say, well, I don't have time for that. I'm behind on my project. I don't have design time for that. We've actually shown that we can reduce design time, even with a problematic project, but definitely with other projects, by using the process and applying the methodology correctly. It also reduces decision time. And I think this is a very important thing, that often in a project that you're working on, in a team you're working on, a group team, it takes a long time to get decisions made by that team. However, I've noticed time and time again, when I'm using the methodology, as we work through the workshop, we work through the process, at the end of the process, the team is all on board with the decision. It's a group decision made. That decision is ready to go, and you've got backup up for that decision. So when you go forward in that presentation phase to the decision makers, to our executives, they've got that made. Did my video go again here? Okay, so they've got that decision made. And at the same time, it's been shown to increase quality, increase value, increase the engagement, and increase ideas. This is where the creativity and innovation comes from. But I want to go back and highlight engagement here. As an owner, especially a public agency owner, originally we first started doing this, we did the value methodology only with internal users. We just did it with our own staff. And then an idea, so a light bulb went on. We innovated one day and said, why can't we start inviting municipalities and other agencies to come to these workshops? And we did that. And then we started inviting some public members, some business owners, some stakeholders to come to the table. And that's when the power of the methodology really showed itself, because we could bring in and we can engage stakeholders and other people in those projects through the use of the methodology. And I really saw the methodology shine. And really, if you Maybe start small. You can't always do this, but once you unlock the full potential, there's a lot of ways to bring in those other people into your studies and make it work, especially in a public agency. So some of our secrets to success. I think the big thing here, and Rakesh highlighted on this, and this is very important. More creative ideas are generated by teams than individuals. This is really important. If you pick anything you want to pick and sit down and write on a piece of paper every creative idea you can think of for that thing, whatever it is. Pick a widget, pick a mousetrap, pick a pencil, pick a chair, pick something you're familiar with, and list off all the creative ideas you can think of. And you're going to have a not a bad list. You might even have something somewhat innovative on there. Then go to your friend and have them do the same thing. And I guarantee you that when you put those two lists together, you're going to get more than what you had on either one list by itself. This is a proven thing. I think as well at the same time is one of the things that, Dr. Paul Scarborough, who we heard on day one of this event, and we're going to hear again a little bit more this afternoon, he gave a presentation last year on the diversity paradox. And, one of the great things about the methodology is the methodology works best when you bring a diverse team together. We embrace having people look at it from different perspectives. Earlier in this course, we talked about how people perceive value and how value may be perceived by you versus the person beside you versus the person who's buying the smart car versus the person buying the Subaru. We need that diversity. We need to look at that from many different perspectives, and that diversity helps to foster the innovation and the creativity. I know one of the initial, a study we did a while back that Steve Holmes and myself did. We looked at sharing benefits with Indigenous groups, and I remember as part of that, we got talking, as sort of our investigations and sort of our stakeholder outreach. We got talked to an Indigenous elder at one. Sorry, I apologize, my camera's acting up for some reason here. But and the elder said that they were telling about some of their Indigenous teachings. They were talking about sitting around a campfire. And I thought this visual stuck with me quite a bit. And I apologize, I didn't put it on the slide today, and I should have. I have one of our past presentations. And they said, everybody that sits around the campfire sees the campfire from a different perspective. And to truly enjoy the campfire, you've got to walk around and enjoy all the different seats and see what everybody else, where they're coming from. They bring different things to the campfire. And it's the same with a VE team, that by having that diverse team of all those individuals come around, everybody brings a different perspective. Everybody is looking at it from a different viewpoint. And that's where you get the true creativity and innovation, is because of that. And of course, we need this structured, methodical, time-bound value methodology job plan, because that produces better results. We're not sort of off in one zone here. We're not doing different things. We're looking at it step by step by step. And having that structured process then helps guide us through that we're going to end up with results. Because I guess anybody can sit around a group and we can have this brainstorming session. We come up with all kinds of creativity, and we could take 2 or 3 days doing that, but we don't get results. The methodology walks you through looking very clearly. What are the functions I need to achieve? What are my parameters? How am I going to measure this? What if I come up with ideas? How do I evaluate the ideas? And ultimately, then I'm presenting a solution at the end of that structured workshop. And the facilitator, this is your CVS at the stop, okay? They lead that process, and they help with the buy-in for change, because they know all the triggers. They know how to put the story together to make it so that at the end, you have your whole case put forward. You have exactly, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the creativity. Here's the innovation. And this is why we should do this. And here are numbers that back up the performance, the value, what I'm going to get out of doing this change. And that ultimately is going to help you to getting support and buy-in for this. Now, I will say that it is key. We would have not got where we are today without executive support and resources. You can't just do this off the corner of your desk. If you're in an organization, you have to apply resources to it. You have to have people that are dedicated to this. You have to say, I'm going to put some money into this. We talked about return on investment. And I know on the first few studies, when I went to somebody and said, well, it's going to cost us $200,000 to do this workshop, that certainly raised a lot of eyebrows. That got people concerned. But when I could come back and say, yes, we spent $200,000 on that workshop, but we saved $10 million on that project as a result. And these are actual results. This is real life when I'm getting like that. We found that the return on investment was quite a bit. As we said, we got between 60 and 100 to 1 or more return on investment on our projects. We still continue to get that. Yes, we spend some money on those workshops. However, we get back a return in improved value, deferred cost, increased life cycle. As a result, we have return on our investment. We got value for money on just running the program itself. We can prove that, by showing results. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox here and turn it over to Rakesh to talk about some of the related tools.
So now we're coming towards conclusion soon. And now you heard everything about the process. You heard everything about the benefit and how it works, the step-by-step process. And you've been thinking, there's so many related tools and techniques out there. Lean, Six Sigma, risk management, and so on. Mike and I are involved in a number of those. We have Lean Office and MTO. We work closely with Lean Office. I have done a number of A3s and so on. So we speak the language, we know it. But what value management does, it doesn't compete with other tools. What it does is complements by working together. Based on the function, which is a values teamwork, stimulate innovation, generate alternative solutions, and champions the ideas. And that's what it does, because based on the function and fosters innovation, working with all together what we have. So now we're leaving you for call for action. You heard everything. And you all maybe expertise in the work you do. And you all have your executive. So here we are. So starting value management needs executive understanding and support. Mike and I had one, number of them. Team of champions, dedicated team with willingness to make a difference. Look at your projects or the program you're involved in. Exceeding budget, level of risk, other problems, business process, stakeholder alignment, and sometimes just needing for achieving common vision, aligning those visions. Value management can help. And more importantly, given the post-pandemic situation we are in and our fiscal reality in private and public sector, where it's very important that we pay close attention to, especially the policy making process in some of the agencies, some of the bigger initiatives that includes a structural approach to innovation, such as value management, that will have real impact. And the end, we want to leave you with our personal contacts and some of the resource, including some of the webinar we do. Mike and I do webinars, which is in the number of things that are in the public domain. There's MTO has a dedicated site, value management, in-stocks, webinar, and invite you to monitor our value focus event. And Mike and I always take pleasure in sharing what we know. And finally, we're here in Value Society and Public Servant ourselves to help you in your journey to understand the value management better, and more importantly, support you in a path to embracing value management and fostering innovation. Thank you very much.